Good Monday evening, Chicago. Welcome back to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio. Sorry to have to take a week off like that last week. It didn't start off like that, but you know how these things go. But we are back and we are ready. The Bears are not back. That was ugly yesterday. The Bears managed to figure out a way to lose to the Lions at home with a fourth quarter lead. This is now 6 straight losses. Can Pace and Nagy possibly survive this? Let's discuss. Let's go over that today, shall we? I'm not sure that they can, but we'll kind of run through the pros and the cons of both on there. Then over in the collegiate side of things, Northwestern football has clinched a spot in the Big Ten championship game. For the second time in 3 years, Coach Pat Fitzgerald and the Cats have taken the Big Ten West. We'll talk about that, plus all kinds of fun things that are going on in the Big Ten. Might they play Ohio State? Maybe they won't play Ohio State, because Ohio State might not have a game this weekend. We'll talk about those shenanigans, and then also, might we see some changes coming to college football in the coming years, specifically in the Power 5 conferences, like the Big Ten, like Northwestern. I've got some thoughts on what has been proposed, and then some thoughts of my own to make it even better. And then we've got baseball to talk about. The winter meeting started today. It's going to be a full fun hour. Everybody strap up. Let's go. Once again, this is Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio. I am your host, Adam Karnick. Thank you so much for taking time out of your night to talk some sports with me. Sorry again that there was no show last week. That was not the intention. The intention was I wasn't going to be available Monday, but that I'd find some time during the week to do it. And, well, you know, the best laid plans, and we all know how that goes. So I'm here now. That's the important thing. So thank you for being patient and bearing with me as we went through. It was nothing crazy, but good to be back. Good to be back talking football with you guys, talking some baseball today. I wish that we could talk about the end of the Bears' losing streak, but alas, the Bears had to go and blow a fourth quarter lead to the Lions. And Taryn already right there in the chat. How do you lose a fourth quarter lead to the Lions? The Lions are supposed to be choking fourth quarter leads. I know. That's how the script is always written with the Bears and the Lions specifically. That the Lions are the team that, you know, are always able to grasp defeat from the jaws of victory and then lose in grand epic fashion. And apparently the Bears yesterday just decided to try their hand at it and were very successful. That was one of the more unique ways to lose a game that I can recall off the top of my head. I don't want to dwell too much on the game yesterday as a whole as much as I want to look at where do we go from here. By the way, if you want to partake in the chat room, please do. Feel free. If you're listening live here on the Spreaker app, go ahead, log on into the show. If you haven't made a username, it's free. You're not going to get bombarded with emails or get pestered by them or anything like that. So just create an account, log on in, and then you can hop on in the chat and join myself. Taryn and Larry are both here. Can talk with them, can talk with me, have all kinds of fun in the chat, so please do that. Other ways to interact with the show, of course, you can follow the station on Twitter at IE Sports. We're also on both Instagram and Facebook. You can find us in those places. This show is on Twitter at Chi-Town Weekly, IESR. And then you can follow me personally on Twitter at Adam_Karnick. So please feel free, interact with the show that way. Or if you just want to sit back and listen and let my voice carry through and tell you all you need to know, that works too. Just thank you so much for listening. So that game yesterday, yuck, ew, gross. So many things to dissect, but I think what's most disappointing to me is I have been a bit of an apologist for the defense during this losing streak. That people have gotten frustrated and upset that the defense isn't doing more. And Robert Quinn especially not getting to the quarterback. And Khalil Mack, why aren't they getting to the quarterback more? And I've tried to preach, maybe not patience, maybe isn't the right word for the defense, but understanding that, look, this is a defense that is built to play with a lead. That in order to be successful at rushing the passer, you have to force the other team to play from behind late in the game. And significantly from behind, not just 3 or 4 points, but double digits from behind in the fourth quarter, so that your defensive players can pin their ears back and just go after the quarterback, because they know the other team's going to have to put the ball in the air. They're going to have to be throwing it, and that gives the defense an advantage because they know what's coming. The Bears were up 30-20 virtually the entire fourth quarter, from about 11 minutes on until just over 2 minutes to go. The Bears were up by 10 that whole fourth quarter, and they couldn't hold the lead. The defense could not get off the field, could not get to Matthew Stafford, couldn't pressure the quarterback. That, to me, was the most frustrating and disappointing thing with the loss yesterday. Was finally the opportunity the defense has been screaming for and crying for and pleading for. Hey, we're playing with a fourth quarter lead. We finally get a chance to just go after the quarterback. We can go after Stafford. Stafford's hurt even. We can get after Stafford and really kind of tee off on him. And they couldn't get out of their own way. They couldn't get off the defense. With 4.5 minutes to go in that game, the Lions took over at their own 4-yard line. ESPN does a live statistic that they keep track of during the game. It's a win percentage, a win probability. With 4.5 minutes to go in that game yesterday, the Lions took over at their own 4-yard line. The Bears had a 98.9% chance of winning that game yesterday at that point. That means if you play the game out from that point on 1,000 times, the Lions only win in 11 of those scenarios. One of them happened yesterday. That can't happen. That can't happen with this defense. Yes, absolutely. The play calling at the end by the offense was questionable at best. Yes, the offensive line play was horrible. Jermaine Ifedi, you've got to make that block. Charles Leno, you've got to make those blocks. You have got to do your job at that point in the game. And Mitchell Trubisky, you have got to make sure that you don't turn the ball over in that scenario. You've got to understand the scenario and make sure that if nothing else, you punt the ball away and live to fight another day in that spot. You cannot cough up the ball in that scenario. But it's got to start with the defense. You're up 10 points with 4 minutes to go. The other team is starting at its own 4-yard line. You have got to understand what's going on there and play to your strengths. And if the other team scores, fine. but make it be a long, protracted march down the field instead of a very quick 2 minutes, they score a touchdown, and then it's an opportunity. That, to me, was the most disappointing thing about yesterday. It was funny. I was texting with some friends of mine during the game, and on that final drive, we were the question got thrown. They were down inside the Lions 30, and it was, all right, how are they going to screw this up? I voted for a pick six. None of us had Allen Robinson being the offensive GOAT in all lower letters there on that final drive of just making the catch, but then not realizing where the sticks were on third down and going out of bounds a yard short with the defender down on the ground in front of him. None of us had that. But then we all knew as soon as that happened, is, well, this is game. They're not converting this 4th and 1. And sure enough, they didn't. All right, so now where do you go from here? Catching up in the chat a little bit, Taryn's brought up a couple of things. You know, the worst part about the loss, the Vikings have moved ahead. Yeah, the Vikings were already technically ahead. Now they are a full game in front of the Bears. The Bears have started 5-1, and now they've lost 6 in a row. Yeah, this is the longest losing streak the Bears have had in 18 years. It was 2002 was the last time they had a losing streak this long. For what it's worth, that losing streak back in 2002 was 8 games, fully half the season in a row that they lost. Needless to say, that season didn't end well. But this is the longest losing streak they've had since then. I don't see how Nagy survives this. I really don't. There was the big money quote that he had about that last night. Nagy was asked by reporters, and I tweeted this out on the show's Twitter page, again at Chi-Town Weekly IESR. Nagy was asked to explain how 2 years in a row this team has gone on these long, protracted losing streaks. They went on a 5-game skid last year, and now they're on a 6-game skid this year, and there's no end in sight, really. You've got Houston coming in next week. Deshaun Watson's had that game circled on the calendar since the schedule was announced. Deshaun Watson, this is going to be personal for him this coming Sunday. I expect Watson to have one of his best games of the season, and I expect the Texans to beat the Bears and Houston to remain the one team in the NFL the Bears have never beaten. But where do you go from here? And Nagy was asked, how do you explain this? How has this happened to this team 2 years in a row that you've gone on these long losing streaks? And his answer was, I don't know. And while that's honest, and appreciate the honesty, and glad, for the candid answer, that's not good. That's not good. You're the coach that was brought in here to bring the offense not only up to the rest of the NFL, but you were supposed to then be on the cutting edge. You were supposed to make this offense be one of the best offenses in the NFL. You were supposed to bring the offense to be on par with the defense so that this team could thrive for years and years to come. It's amazing that 6 or 7 weeks ago, I was talking about how Nagy was the second fastest coach in team history to get to 25 wins. The only guy faster was Papa Bear Hallis himself. And now here we are 2 months later, he's still at 25 wins. He hasn't added to that. Your offense has gone backwards every year since he's been here. The Bears are now the second worst offense in the NFL. The only offense that's worse is the Jets. And the Jets have their own problems. Still, hashtag at least we're not the Jets. That still holds up after yesterday and that Hail Mary that the Jets gave up to lose. If you haven't seen it, go check out the way the Jets lost yesterday. But the Jets responded. The Jets fired their defensive coordinator this morning. Will the Bears respond? I don't expect the Bears to fire Matt Nagy right now in season. The Bears have never done that before. The McCaskies are not known for doing that, for firing a coach mid-season. So I don't look for Nagy to get fired before the end of the season. But your offense has gone backwards every single season you've been here. The defense is now slipping at an alarming rate, giving up over 800 yards combined the last 2 weeks, and just not holding on to situations where you thought, hey, this is why we have this defense. This is why we have you guys. They're not holding up their end of the bargain even when the offense does produce for them. You have not been able to transform a quarterback. You have not been able to figure out how to make it work with this quarterback, and you're losing the team. I don't see how Nagy survives this. And so the head coach is gone. Well, then what about the general manager? Ryan Pace, this is his 6th year as general manager of the Bears. He has a losing record. He has tried every way imaginable to bring in a quarterback. He paid starting money to Mike Glennon in free agency. That didn't pan out. He drafted Trubisky 2nd overall. That hasn't panned out. And he traded for Nick Foles this offseason, which cost a lot of money. Not only draft capital, cost a lot of money, too, because of his contract. That hasn't worked out. Those are the only 3 ways you can acquire a quarterback in the NFL, and Pace has failed at all 3 of them. He's also already hired 2 head coaches. With those circumstances, you don't get to hire a 3rd head coach. You don't get to hire a 3rd head coach in 7 years. So you've got to get rid of Ryan Pace. You've got to get rid of the general manager. And while in a vacuum, I 100% agree with those moves at this point. That's where I'm at with this team, that you've got to move on from these guys. You can't bring them back next year. So while in a vacuum, yes, I am perfectly on board with those moves. The Bears are very quickly turning back into one of the laughingstock teams in the league. We're very quickly turning into what you would have considered Cleveland Brown territory or Detroit Lion territory or just laughingstock territory. Bad place to be. Let's go over the last decade. From 2011 till next season. For sake of argument, Pace is gone, Nagy is gone. We'll agree to those 2 things because I think they are. I think it's fait accompli. Those 2 guys are gone. Since 2011, this next general manager that they hire will be the 4th general manager that the team has had since 2011. You had Jerry Angelo in 2011. That was his last season. Then you had Phil Emery from 2012 to 2014. Then you've had Ryan Pace from 2015 to now. And then you're hiring a new guy in 2021. And then the head coach that general manager brings in, that's going to be the 5th head coach they've had since 2011. You had Lovie Smith from 2011 to 2012. He got fired. By the way, he went 10-6 in 2012 for what that was worth. Not to get too much into it, but he was 10-6. You'd kill to be 10-6 right now. Then you had Mark Trestman in 2013 and 14. That was a disaster, especially 2014. My goodness, was that a disaster. Then you had John Fox, 15 through 17. And now you've had Nagy, 18 through 20. And now you're going to have whomever the new guy is in 2021. That's not how winning organizations work. You can't constantly have all that turnover at the top and constantly be changing things over and restarting and redoing and retrying and reassigning and redoing and pulling the plug and starting over fresh and expecting good results to consistently happen. So I'm worried that the Bears are once again spinning into that tailspin of laughingstock spot in the NFL. One of the coaching names that has popped up again for the Bears is Pat Fitzgerald, the head coach of the Northwestern Wildcats. I think part of the reason for that is because he's a Chicago guy. He's a fan of the team. He is friends with one of the minority owners of the Bears. So there's reasons that his name gets thrown out there. But he's doing a heck of a job at his current job with Northwestern. I want to talk about those Wildcats and the Big Ten and college football in general. So let's stay on the gridiron, but we're going to go down to the amateur level for a little bit. This is Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey, what's up, sports fans? You're looking for a different type of sports talk show, something you haven't heard before? You gotta check out the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday on 2 Live Stews Radio, 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Sports talk at its finest. Always have great guests. playing some good hip-hop. You don't want to miss it. Make sure to tune in to the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern.
Hey USRN fans, do you have a product or company you're trying to promote? Look no further. USRN is teaming up with small local businesses trying to establish themselves via online promotion. Let us know if you're interested. Email us at usrnradio@gmail.com to learn more.
Soccer Scoreboard Show with your host, Gabriel Montoya. This is the show for soccer, football fans, or whatever you call the beautiful game. Every week, I tackle the latest and greatest news from around the soccer world, from the English Premier League to the World Cup to MLS, Liga MX, and more. You can listen to the Soccer Scoreboard Show and our lineup of fantastic guests every Friday at noon here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Everybody, this is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Thank you again for taking some time out and listening to the show tonight, whether it's live or if you're listening as a podcast after the fact. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So, Northwestern, the Wildcats, hey! They stumbled, a couple weeks ago I talked about them and congratulated them on getting a very easy path to the Big Ten title game, and then they decided to, go and make me look kind of silly, which admittedly isn't hard to do, and stumble against Michigan State. I was feeling a little nervous about that, and then they turned around and made it up for it and won this past week, so they are in the Big Ten title game. Second time in 3 years, Coach Fitzgerald has done an awesome job bringing this program kind of back to respectability, back to even national prominence a little bit. No, I don't think they will be picked to win the Big Ten championship game, but just the fact that Northwestern and Big Ten title game and Rose Bowl can be said in the same sentence without it sounding ludicrous and ridiculous is pretty darn cool, pretty darn amazing. It is up in the air who they might face. Now, I have to admit, pro football is definitely more my game than the college game, and I'll get into that a little bit more why in a minute. But I want to put that caveat there because when I tell you what's being laid out here in the Big Ten, it's petty and it's childish, and I think it's hilarious. So in the Big Ten East, Ohio State is clearly the front runner to win the division and therefore make it into the Big Ten championship game. The Buckeyes are 5-0. They have won fairly easily every single week. They have an excellent college quarterback in Justin Fields, somebody who's probably going to go in the top 5 in the NFL draft this coming spring. They have an excellent coach in Urban Meyer, etc., etc. And they are set to play their big rival this week, Michigan, whom the Buckeyes have absolutely owned over the last 15 years, really. Just completely dominated that rivalry. There's one catch, though. They've only played 5 games due to COVID, due to the Big Ten waiting as long as it did to start playing football, and then imposing rules of they're only going to play it's going to be a purely conference schedule, and that to be eligible for any postseason games, you've got to at least get in a 6-game regular season. It's part of why Wisconsin isn't eligible, isn't part of the postseason discussions for the Big Ten. It's part of why Northwestern won the Big Ten West, because Wisconsin had an outbreak and isn't going to get enough games. Well, Ohio State had to have some games canceled too. And there's talk that... So this game for Ohio State means everything against Michigan. You win this game, you're automatically in the Big Ten title game, and you need to have this game so that you'll be eligible for the Big Ten title game. Michigan, on the other hand, has absolutely nothing to play for. The Wolverines have looked bad, to say the least, this season. They've gotten blown out by Wisconsin. They got blown out by Indiana. Indiana, you don't think of Indiana and Big Ten football. You know, when somebody says, oh, Indiana sports, maybe you think of Bill Knight and college hoops and chairs getting thrown and referees getting yelled at, and at least that's what I think of when I think of Indiana college athletics. I don't know. Taryn, I see Taryn Rodriguez is in the chat. You may have heard the Set Point ad there. Set Point's a great volleyball show that Taryn does every week. Taryn, is Indiana known for its volleyball, either men's or women's? That's definitely not my area of expertise. So I certainly don't think of football when I think of Indiana. But Michigan got destroyed by them. So this game means nothing for Michigan except it's your rival. But you know you're going to get beat. You're going to get killed. Yeah, Michigan even lost to Penn State. Penn State hadn't beaten anybody, and Michigan lost. Michigan is 2-4 this season. They have nothing to play for. They have nothing to play for in this game other than pride. They're 30-point dogs. They're 30-point underdogs heading into this game. Michigan is going to get killed. Well, if Michigan, though, were to say suddenly have an outbreak of COVID, well, then they'd have to cancel the game. And then, well, Ohio State would only have 5 games. So Ohio State wouldn't be eligible suddenly for postseason play. The Buckeyes suddenly wouldn't be able to go up to the Big Ten title game and possibly then make the college football playoff. Gee darn, wouldn't it just be a shame if Michigan just suddenly had all its players get sick and not be able to partake in this game? I think it's an absolutely ludicrous argument, but I find it hysterical and completely accurate to the college football landscape that conversation is happening in Ann Arbor right now. So much so that the Big Ten has actually had to scramble together an emergency meeting with its presidents and athletic directors and decide, hey, if Michigan does have to cancel this game, should we just go ahead and say that Ohio State is eligible anyway, even though they didn't play enough games? So we don't know yet who Northwestern's going to play in the Big Ten title game. It's probably going to be Ohio State. But if for some reason Ohio State isn't able to get in that game with Michigan this week, it might just be Indiana. And then you have the Big Ten title game that everybody signed up for and is looking for. Northwestern and Indiana. Oh, boy. Wake me when it's over, please. So, once again, 2020. What can you say? But there was other news that was brought to my attention with college football over the weekend. A coworker of mine actually sent me an article about it, and I'll tweet out. There's been several news outlets that have talked about it, and then I've also got the actual report right here in front of me, right here, from the Knight Commission itself. So there's the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics. They are a foundation that, while they are not subservient to the NCAA in any way, shape, form, or fashion, they're not part of the NCAA, they do make recommendations to the NCAA on ways to improve collegiate athletics. And there was a report that they came out with late last week. It was a recommendation where they're proposing to take college football and take it away, take in the what is called the FBS, the Football Bowl Subdivision, or what we might more commonly think of as the Division I schools, the big boys, the big schools, and actually take FBS football out of the NCAA and create its own unique governing body just for college football. And it would be I'm sorry, I had the name right in front of me, but it would be its own entity that would be paid for by revenue generated from the college football national champion, the college football playoffs, the CFP system. All the money for high-end football then would be paid for out of this fund rather than NCAA. And it would help to theoretically make things easier on the other sports. There's a quote here from one of the Knight Commission co-chairs, Arne Duncan is his name. We're at a moment of both crisis and opportunity in college sports. Now is not the time to think only of narrow institutional interests. Now is the time for college leaders to step up and act on their desire to advance big solutions to benefit college athletes. So they are proposing this new system. Our commission another quote. Our commission recognizes that far-reaching governance reform will not take place overnight. At the same time, it believes that discussion on a new governance structure for Division I can, should, and must begin immediately. The Football Bowl subdivision would then be funded by the college football playoff revenue, close to almost $550 million. That's based on, obviously, pre-pandemic numbers. That's obviously going to not be quite so big this year. The NCFA, National College Football Association, that's the name of what this proposed organization would be, would conduct all the operations for college football for the high-end schools, and specifically for the Power 5 schools. So you'd be taking football out of the NCAA and creating its own entity that would be subservient unto itself. So you wouldn't have NCAA regulations anymore. You wouldn't be needing to have football money also take care of the other sports like soccer and volleyball and hockey and basketball and all those. It would just take care of itself. And I see Taryn has brought up, what about the FCS schools? Are they going to have, what are they going to do? Well, they would still be under NCAA authority. They would still be following NCAA guidelines. And it was an interesting idea. It caught my attention because for a couple of reasons. I have wanted for many years for football at the quote-unquote amateur level, at the collegiate level, to be reformed. College football generates millions of dollars in revenue. Right there, the college football playoff generates nearly $550 million in revenue. That, by and large, goes into the pockets of the collegiate presidents, the collegiate athletic directors, the collegiate coaches. Yes, that money also allows for other college sports to exist, and that is a good thing. And yes, college football players do get a scholarship that allows them to go to university as a result. But I would argue that the current system woefully is inadequate to college students at large and the college body at large. And I would even make the argument that it is bad for college students and college graduates at large. And I'll real quickly make my point because I'm looking at the time and knowing I'm coming up against a break. College football, because the players aren't entitled to any of the money that is generated from football. You don't have to pay the players anything. You're saving money there if you're a college. So you're not having to pay your players. You're bringing in money from the television rights. You're bringing in money from ticket sales, from merchandise, etc., etc., that you're not having to share with your players. You are sharing it with your fellow athletic directors and presidents and coaches. You also have to entice these coaches to come to your school. You have to build these gigantic megaplexes of locker rooms and workout equipment and ways to take care of the players, to train them to turn into the gladiators that football players are, the modern day gladiators that football players are. Those facilities are not cheap. By and large, that cost gets trickled down into the student body at large. It's part of why you see it so expensive for people to go to college. Even if they aren't athletes, they have to help pay for the training facilities, the weight rooms, the workout rooms, the new stadiums that have to get built. So I would love to see football, by and large, get taken out of the NCAA and somehow a minor league system get created. Quick aside, I am not a huge soccer fan, or football fan if you prefer. Andrew Hagenbaugh does an awesome job on Sundays hosting the Soccer Scoreboard show. You should definitely check it out. I have other friends that are also into soccer, and one of the things that I've brought up with them in time to time is, and I've learned from soccer, and I'd love to see the U.S. institute something like this, is how soccer internationally handles its up-and-coming rising stars. The reason soccer is relevant is because outside of the U.S., soccer is the biggest sport out there. Our American football game is not that big outside of the country. What you'll see a lot of times with these other industries, what they'll do is they create what's the right word to use? An institution that, yes, you're going to get a higher education here. We're not going to let you leave here being a Neanderthal, but we realize and recognize that you are here to learn how to be a professional athlete. You are here to learn how to be a professional football player. And so that is your primary goal. So they have workouts and coaches and things that are more geared towards up-and-coming soccer players, academies. There's the word. Soccer academies. I'd love to, but that also allows them then to go to a specialized school just for that. I'd love to see something like that here in the States. Obviously, the way we've been doing it for the last 100 years, the universities aren't just going to give that up because they're nice people. You know, it's a lot of money to just give up. So obviously, something's going to have to happen to make something like that, to get it shaken up and have something happen. But I'd love to see here in the States something like that happen with college football, to kind of separate football from the regular student body a little bit. So I saw the article, and it's an interesting step. It's an interesting step in the right direction. We'll kind of see where it goes from here. All right, we have talked a lot of football, both professionally and amateur. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about some baseball. The winter meetings began today, and there's also a little bit of news, some sad news in the baseball world that we'll do a little bit of a tribute to here coming up. This is Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Green team, set, hey!
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Colin Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
Hi everybody, it's Calvin here from USRN, here to give you an important message. Since 2017, we have done our absolute best to provide you with nothing but the highest quality of sports calls in the greatest of quantity possible. Thanks to you, our station has grown more than we ever thought. That's why, with your help, we would like to grow even further. Just think, twice the amount of your favorite calls, 24 hours of coverage, talk shows, play-by-play, game-by-game analysis, and so much more. That's right, USRN2 is officially in development, but we can't do it alone. We have set up a GoFundMe page that you can access from our homepage on the left of your screen. We also are planning special giveaways and prizes to our highest donors. Our goal here at USRN is to bring you the best calls possible at no cost to you. In order to continue to do that, we need your help now. Please check out our GoFundMe page, and if you would like to know how you can help, you can email usrnradio@gmail.com. Without your support, we couldn't do what we do.
Lopan, they didn't even want you. Heck, they didn't even want me. But you know what? Right about now, they have no choice. Looking for the real sports talk? Talk that's for us, the people? Look no further. The Wait a Minute Show, a prime time sports comedy cocktail that tucks you in at night. Join me and Lopan Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 2livestewsradio.com and Saturday 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Wait a Minute Show.com. Sounds like a plan to me. Ain't that right, Lopan?
Indeed.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. One last little bit here for the night before we let you go. Let's talk some baseball a little bit. The winter meetings started up today. Obviously, like everything else in 2020, just a little bit different. Rather than having everybody meet in Dallas as normally they would do, all of the general managers and owners are instead doing virtual meetings, making it a little harder to do some of the face-to-face and wheeling and dealing and horse trading that they normally do that's common at the winter meetings. But that doesn't mean that there's absolutely nothing going on in the winter meetings. There's always talk of trades and rumors and things flying around. I did see the Angels made a move earlier today to acquire a closer, so there's stuff happening. The north side of town is pretty quiet. Not much going on there. The Cubs decided to move on from Kyle Schwarber and Albert Almora Jr. last week. Not surprised that they decided to move on from Almora, but moving on from Schwarber was a bit of a surprise. He was a fan favorite, and of course, one of the heroes of the 2016 World Series run. They've left the door open that Schwarber could come back, but I don't know. I think there's a very good chance that somebody will make him an offer that will be too good for him to refuse. Back in 2019, he had an excellent season. 2020 was a little rough. 2020 was a lot of rough for a lot of people. I don't know that too many people will hold that against him too much. Oh, who am I kidding? These are baseball owners. They're cheap. They're going to do everything they can to hold everything they can against everybody. But that, I digress. That's a whole other thing. White Sox, real quick, they have got some interest in a couple of outfielders. There's some buzz going around. Jeff Passan is mentioning that there's look for the right field position. Maybe not getting George Springer, but somebody like a Michael Brantley could be coming into town. He might be somebody that they could afford. Left-handed bat that could really help out the White Sox. Then Ken Rosenthal is reporting that they could be interested in Jock Peterson. So some different names being bandied about there for the White Sox to look at increase their outfield depth. Right field was one of the spots on last year's roster where they seemingly didn't have a superstar. So it'll be interesting to see what the White Sox in an obvious win right now mode are going to be like. Make things kind of different to watch on the South Side. Should be kind of a fun offseason. And then a sad note. Dick Allen passed away this afternoon at 78 years old. Allen was a 7-time All-Star from back in the 70s. Played with a bunch of different teams. Was drafted by the Phillies. Came up through their organization. Also played for the Cardinals, the Dodgers, and the A's. But he spent 3 years with the White Sox and had some memorable moments with them. Made the All-Star team all 3 years he was with the Sox. I can't help but when I think of Dick Allen, there's an image from the cover of Sports Illustrated where he's in the dugout wearing the powder blue home jerseys with the red cap and red sleeves, smoking a cigarette and juggling 3 or 4 different baseballs at a time. He was a character. Kind of check out some of the history of Dick Allen a little bit. He's also somebody that absolutely, unequivocally should be in the Hall of Fame. He had a career OPS of over 900 of a 15-year major league career. Even if you don't necessarily understand all the advanced numbers that are going around out there in baseball, to have an OPS of over 900, that basically means that for every time he stepped up to the plate, he earned you a base. That's a good number. That's a good thing to do. So rest in peace, Dick Allen, and hopefully his family can find some peace as well. Everybody have a good night. We will talk to you next week. See you then.